Once again, thank you. And those who don't know me, I'm Andrew Lee. I'm the CEO of York Harbour Metals. And, I thought a good way to introduce the project to you is sort of go back to sort of the beginning of, how this project came about and how it wound up in our company. If we go back to February 2021, there was a lot of activity happening in Newfoundland. And, I'm sure you've heard of a small little company called Newfound Gold. There was a buzz, a lot of, a lot of junior companies were looking at a lot of projects over there. And, the landscape was filling up very quickly. Newfoundland has been always very rich in minerals and exploration, but at the same time, it seemed to also fall a little bit under the radar. And that's kind of when I got introduced to a couple of guys, Neil Blackmore and Wes Keats. And they had a project in a place called York Harbour. And, it seemed very interesting. And I thought that was a good way to introduce the project to you. So if you could go to the next slide there, Sean. This was one of the first things that I saw with respect to the project. I saw a photo of a piece of massive sulfide, copper, zinc, and cobalt. And, the project was in and is in Newfoundland, approximately 27 kilometers outside of Corner Brook, right next to the highway. Great infrastructure. You got access to deep water, lots of fresh water as well, and power, and full community support. And, that's the thing that, you love to hear about a project where, the people are behind it, from labor, skilled workers, drillers, to local government. And at that time, I think copper was just entering a bull market. The project has a very rich history in the sense that there was mining that was done between the late 1890s to about 1910. The mine eventually shut down, I think, very abruptly in 1913. I think one of the owners died, and it stayed dormant probably till about the 50s and 60s. And most significant was back in the mid 1960s, there was a company called Big Nama Creek that, began tunneling in a sea level adit to basically join up with the vertical shafts from the main mining zone. Again, abruptly, they had to, stop their project and never really connected with the main shaft, primarily from lack of funding. But I think they also had a few other events that happened during that period, which kind of the most, the next extent of major exploration happened in the 90s with a company called Noranda. There were a lot of underground exploration holes that were drilled, as well as from surface. But a lot of attention for the project, just nothing really significant happened in between. And that's sort of when, we looked at it and said, hey, there is enough data here. And that led us to where we are today. With a little bit of modern exploration techniques, we saw huge potential in the project. If you could get to the next slide there. So this is our claim boundaries now. The original size of the project was about 650 hectares. We've expanded it to about 4725. And if you can see that small little box there, that is extent of the exploration that has occurred on the project. It's covers probably approximately about 400 meters in length. But what attracted us to this project is if you look at the outline of the Bay of Islands complex there, that geological formation in the middle, I don't know if you can see it there or not, but if it's kind of outlined in red, that whole geological formation there is what attracted us to this project. It's typically it's a example of a syncline type of formation, and it looks like the eastern side and the western side just hasn't been fully explored. So if you can go to the next slide there. And this is really speaking to the potential of this project. You could see all of the gaps, even in the main mined area, of all of the circles there. That's just grounds that are just unexplored. And we know it's open in several directions. And most importantly, it's also wide open at depth. It's just never been tested. And if you can go to the next slide there, Sean. And this model, this cross-section, is going to give you a hopefully a good sense of the size of the project. And this is a question that I get asked all the time, like what really intrigued you about this project? And it really is the potential of the size. I mean, there is so much unexplored ground on this project. And you can see from the scale there, it's actually quite significant. We've only really gotten information and tested in the mined area, that little main zone there. And everything else just hasn't been explored fully. And I think this long section that we're going to see in the next slide here is going to really speak to, what's the type of project that we're looking at. And, eventually I'm going to hand this off to Doug Blanchflower, who's going to speak to how we got into our exploration drilling. But you can also see from this map the potential of the project here. So with all of that information that we had, one of the first steps that we did was we put together a geological model, and that really led to the first phase of drilling. And I'm going to introduce our project geologist, Doug Blanchflower, who really designed and got phase 1, 2, and 3 off the ground for us. And again, these are some of the mineralization photos that we're seeing here, with a lot of calcpyrite as well as the sphalerite from the underground. And this just spoke to why we got into the project. And I think with some modern techniques here, the potential can be unlocked. So we're going to jump right into, all of this really led into phase 1 of drilling, which takes us back to probably about August of 2021. And I'd like to introduce Doug Blanchflower, our project geologist here. And, he's really led the way on the various programs that we've designed. I think this is a good segue into handing it off to Doug.
Morning, everyone. My name is Doug Blanchflower. I got involved with Andrew back in June when he asked me to do a 3D model of the mineralization as indicated from the old historic drill hole database. The database was made up in 2010, but in the intervening time, no operators really followed up and drilled according to the results. Anyway, I modeled the mineralization, and in doing so, I realized the potential not only of the mine area, but of the whole property. So I proposed to Andrew an initial phase 1 program to confirm the mineralization as reported. We drilled 9 holes from July 24th to August 14th for a total of 1,222 meters. We intersected massive mineralization in 6 of the 9. 2 of the holes we ran into a fault zone and had to be terminated early. And 1 hole, number 7, actually hit the old adit. You can see from the mineralization on the right that our program was very successful, and the results from this program have been released in news releases. So as a result of the success of phase one, I proposed that we did a second phase to trace the strike and dip of the mineralization using both the 3D model and our phase one drill results. And we drilled 29 holes from October 20th to December 15th for a total of 4,562 meters. As you can see, we covered a fair strike length that's about 400 meters from north end to the south end. And many of the holes hit mineralization, some didn't. But of the 29 holes, we probably hit massive and semi-massive mineralization in 22 of the 29. Here's an example of the mineralization we hit. The top core is from one of our very rich holes, and the bottom one shows the the core from 18, which was 25 meters of over 2% copper, and also hole 20. So as a result of the success both in 1 and 2, we decided to continue on in the new year, starting on January 21st. Since then, we've drilled 25 holes for a total of 4,263. We've drilled the both the what we're calling the northeastern portion and the southwestern portion. The idea of this drilling was to identify not only the up and down dips of the known mineralization, but also fill in the gaps of where the drilling had been too scarce for the type of mineralization we're looking for. As you can see, we have now a good coverage of the mine area, and for the next work, we'll extend this work not only to the 500-meter gap between the northern most of our drilling this year and the sea level at it, where over 1% copper mineralization was reported in historic documents, but also to other exploration targets on the property. Okay, these are two examples of the massive mineralization we've hit in phase 3. And from some of the holes, 39 and 44, we've also hit a number of other holes with massive mineralization, and the results will be released shortly. Here's one of hole 46 with a picture of how it looks before splitting and sampling, with all the assay tag numbers and the marks of where the massive and semi-massive mineralization occurs. Next slide. Okay, this one shows you a more extensive picture of the potential on the property. The 4 geochemical slides on the corners of this drawing are soil geochemical results from Noranda's 1990-91 soil sampling. And we've transferred the anomalies onto the central portion with an outline, and you can see how they overlay each other. Now, starting in the top left is what we call the number 4 brook area. There's no massive mineralization in the area, and except for 2 short drill holes in 91 by Noranda, it's never been tested by drilling. In the opposite area is the main area, which our phase 1, 2, and 3 drilling has been carried out. As you can see, it's a very small area relative to the potential of the property. The target area that we're looking at is the contact between the darker green in the center and the lighter green envelope around it. And that's the contact between the lower and upper basalt units. And as you can see, we have an extensive contact area to both explore and test. Just to the southeast of the main area is what they call a K zone. And in that area, there was a couple of drill holes, but a very strong soil geochemical anomaly that's never been tested. To the south west is a very large coincident copper, zinc, lead, and silver anomaly called the Pinnacle Zone. It's been reported in a number of times by various operators and has never received any drilling. So as you can see, we have an extensive area. Now, what you're seeing in the lines is our proposed IP grid for this coming spring, and it will survey the entire area where there is geochemical support and geological information, and we intend to drill these targets. And that's basically our short-term plans.
Thanks, Doug. I'm going to pass it over to Andrew. He's just going to speak just about how tight our share structure is, and then we're going to go in. We do have some questions already prepared, but if any of you have any questions and you want to pop it in the chat, feel free to do so.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, since we got started on the restructuring, as of today, we have 48.84 million shares outstanding. We've got about 10 million warrants that are all in the money, as well as about 3 million options. Market cap right now is somewhere between 55 and 60, I guess 63 million. A few days ago, we hit a year high of $1.38. From where we started, I remember the first time we got started in 2020, we were raising money at 5 cents. And, our single largest shareholder now, Blair Naughty, he's been there really with me from day one. And along the way, we brought in a lot of key investors. I think most notably, the biggest name out there is probably Eric Sprott. And I think these structures, we've kept it very tight. We've got some ample float there as well. And I think, the project matches very well with our future plans. And I kind of also want to take the time here to go over, the team. I mean, going back a few years, it's, myself, Sean, and, Roger. I mean, that was basically it. Since then, we've, attracted the likes of Leo Power, who's he's from Newfoundland, Labrador, and, fantastic addition to the board. And I don't have to speak much more. I think Bruce's reputation, and I'm going to actually have him speak to some of the closing comments. And, one of the big things as to why he, joined the company. So, I mean, I think we got a fantastic team. The guys in the field, guys like Neil and Wes and, Alex and Sander, just a, good group of guys. Our drilling team, Josh has been fantastic, Forage Fusion. They've been great guys to work with. So, as closing remarks, I think I'm going to really take the time before we get into the Q&A. I kind of would like to have Bruce speak to, why he joined our company and, what he sees as the future for us.
Thanks, Andrew. The main reason that I joined this company is when you sit back and look at mineral exploration projects and how you go from having a discovery or how you go from having a project to making it into an operating mine, some of the key things are clearly the infrastructure that's available. So when you look at a project and it's sitting at tidewater, it's got a highway, it's got good power. It's got a ready and willing workforce who are receptive to mining and familiar with mining. Much different than going to, say, South America, where people don't understand mining, where there's no trained staff, and or working in the Arctic, where drilling costs would be probably 5 times what they would be working on the west coast of Newfoundland. From a project potential point of view, this is a really good project. I mean, it was mined in the 1800s, so clearly something of significance. And what they did then was they were hand cobbing high-grade chalcopyrite and shipping that in barrels off to London for processing. The logistics haven't changed, but we know that there was mineralization that they completely ignored. They would have only focused on extremely high-grade mineralization, so only a small portion was mined. And the fact remains, if you look at that cross-section, where we've got the potential to find other deposits down around that syncline and back up the other side, this project really is underexplored. It's only been scratched at surface and maybe in the immediate mine area down to a depth. And even where we're only drilling down to about 150 meters vertically. And we know that there's potential on that contact probably for about 18 kilometers if you add up the extent of that contact coming down to the south and back up on the west, and then also down at depth. So we think it's early days, and we've got reasonable exploration costs, and I think we're in a great jurisdiction. So that's what drew me to the company.
Thanks, Bruce. We did have a question. With all the excitement in Newfoundland, the big gold rush as we know it in the last few years because of Newfound Gold and Goldspot. But really, people were asking about, this is a past producing mine, and there's history here. There's history on the rock or in Newfoundland. So Neil Blackmore, being a Newfoundlander, I think if you just want to jump in and just kind of give us a brief little history of, base metal projects and production on or in the province, I think that'll help us understand just how much base metals has come out of the island.
Like you say, Sean, gold is a relatively new thing to the province. Newfoundland has historically been a copper mining province. So most notably, I guess, would be the Buckens deposit, which I guess was the richest of its type in the world. And we still mine copper here to this day with Rambler Metal and Mining on the Baie Peninsula. So they have an active flotation circuit there that makes concentrate. I believe they still have another 50 years of mine life in Baie Verte. Baie Verte also hosts the Tilt Cove mine, which was the first copper mine in North America. And we've had a fairly rich zinc history here as well with Daniels Harbour, which was operated by Teck Resources. There's also the Duck Pond deposit, which was operated by Teck Resources, which was a similar deposit to York Harbour in that it was rich in copper, lead, zinc, silver, gold, and cobalt. Barium as well, I believe. There's still a number of undeveloped deposits around the Marathon Gold District there now that I believe Cantera Resources owns. They've got 5 separate deposits there now that they're currently working to combine, and they're all polymetallic deposits as well that are very rich in copper, lead, zinc, gold, and silver. Like I said before, Newfound Gold, gold was a pretty quiet commodity in Newfoundland, and like I say, most companies did come here to look for copper and volcanic massive sulfide deposits.
Thanks, Neil.
Yep, you're welcome.
Going on to Doug, I heard, Doug, that Andrew's been trying to get you to work with him on different projects in the past and stuff, and this one took you out of retirement. Can you let us know why you came out of retirement to work on this one?
No, the reason I got involved in it was I saw the potential not only in the mine area with the massive sulfide mineralization intersected not only in the 4-level adit, but also the drilling, mainly underground, but also surface drilling up until 2010. And it was quite obvious, not only the massive sulfide mineralization and its position within the geologic setting, but also the unexplored potential around the same geologic setting. And that was my introduction to the project.
Thank you, Doug. And yeah, the emphasis is, how big can this get? And we're looking at a small area at the moment, but there's a lot of smoke all around. Anyone else? Bruce, looks like you're unmuted. Would you want to add something?
I think people need to keep in mind that this style of volcanogenic massive sulfide mineralization typically has a fairly short strike length. And so these are going to be pods and lenses of mineralization that are going to take a fair bit of detailed drilling. And that's what Doug's doing a really good job of, is going in and probably for the first time in history, drilling these lenses of mineralization off in enough detail and extending to the limit of the mineralization. So we're going to have holes that have mineralization, that have really good mineralization, and then holes that have no mineralization. So this is a geological exercise to get in there and actually, for the first time, define the limits and the size of these areas of mineralization. And the fact that they've got small footprints means they don't make very good geophysical conductors for when we fly airborne geophysics. So the fact that people have worked here and didn't see big conductors should not be a deterrent to people investing in this company. The one thing we are going to be doing in the next little while is starting a grid, and we'll do sophisticated IP surveys over this entire area that we consider to be the favorable contact that extends for probably close to 20 kilometers if you follow it all the way around and down at depth. So we think we're going to generate a number of really good targets out of this, and then we've got to go and put the drill on it.
Thanks, guys. Andrew, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think we should also touch on, I think referencing some of the questions I get is referencing that last news release, hole 24, basically that 11.9% copper. I mean, I think that was the first thing that I asked Doug as well. So, I think if you can kind of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. In what respect expand? I think the results speak for themselves. Basically, you can hit on this property. You can hit extensive mineralization. Hole 18, 25 meters. This one was 29. We've hit other ones in the 15 to 25, and quite frankly, in my career, this is probably the thickest mineralization, and certainly some of the richest I've ever seen. I worked with VMS deposits for about 40 years, and it's a very impressive array of results. As you can see on the screen, out of the what are we reporting here? 10 holes. We hit probably 6 of them are exceptional, and there's only a few that are weak. And this is very unusual for massive sulfide drilling.
Sean, if you scroll back up on that press release where there was the picture of the zinc mineralization, I think it's informative. So there's a picture of some really high grade mineralization in one of our recent drill holes. It ran 5%, ran almost 3% copper, but ran 30% zinc. And from a geophysical point of view, this would not be something that would show up as a target unless you did sophisticated IP surveys, because there's just not enough chalcopyrite or copper mineralization that's joined together to give you a good conductor. So this style of mineralization would not have been found in any of the previous work, any of the geophysical surveys that were done historically. So I think we're going to come up with some really good targets out of this new, more sophisticated, deep-seeking IP survey that we're going to do. So stay tuned for that information.
Also, in addition to this, we should also speak to the cobalt, which is a close associate with the copper and sphalerite mineralization. The grades we're intersecting in the drill holes, drilling cobalt grades are exceptional. And they're several times higher than Voisey Bay cobalt values.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think cobalt is also a very interesting metal in the sense that the demand is going to double in the next probably 3-4 years due to 5G as well as electric cars. So, it's we're obviously not targeting cobalt as a primary, but as a secondary, it definitely helps.
We plan to do this often. We want to be as active, as transparent, as available to everyone here. It's very exciting. Our company has been drilling almost nonstop since phase one, because it just gets better and better. So stay tuned. We'll leave it at that. But Andrew Lee is, in my opinion, and many others, a workhorse, and he's available day and night. He takes everyone's calls, everyone's questions. So feel free to write or call and reach out to any of us. We'd be happy to go through the full presentation and any questions you have. And yeah, stay tuned for more. We got at least 50% more drill results or drill holes still pending assay results to put out. So a lot of news flow to come, a lot of activity. And yeah, we'll be definitely getting the story out as far and as wide as we can. So thanks again for everyone for coming. We'll leave it at that. And once again, this will be available via the website and email, and also on YouTube. We'll get it edited first, and unfortunately there was no video, but we'll make sure we have everyone's pictures that spoke today. So thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for the team for showing up, and let's keep going at it.